In today's video, I'm going to go over the... Alright, let's get real. The Barbarian class in Baldur's Gate 3's Early Access. I will be going over the entire class in this video, so both subclasses, the Wildheart and the Berserker, and I'm also going to talk about a few things that you might not have thought of. As always, chapter markers will be below. Let's jump on in. Before you choose your race and figure out your ability points, you first have to decide which type of barbarian that you want to be. Do you want to be a strength-based barbarian, a dexterity barbarian? Do you want to wear armor or be that bare-chested, half-naked barbarian running around the map? Now, obviously, the most common choice here is going to be a strength-based barbarian that uses a big, heavy weapon and smashes everything to pieces. And if you're going to go this route, and it's a very, very powerful route, you're going to have three primary ability scores. Strength for your attack rolls and damage rolls to make you more likely to hit and also deal a little bit more damage. Constitution is going to be for your hit points, which is very important for barbarians, and also possibly for your unarmored defense, and we'll talk about that here shortly. And dexterity is also kind of a primary ability to invest into because it not only helps with your initiative, which is awesome for barbarians, but it also helps with unarmored defense and your armor class number if you're wearing armor. So if you're going to play that strength-based barbarian and you want to optimize your combat power, you're going to want to choose a race that gives you a boost in strength and constitution, and we'll worry about dexterity when we're spreading out our points. And there's three races that will do this for you: the human, the half-elf, because you can distribute 2 points into ability scores of your choice, and then of course the shield dwarf. And the shield dwarf is going to be the most optimal choice because it gives you a +2 to constitution and strength. It's the only race that does that, and that allows you to give yourself a 17 in strength and a 17 in constitution right away in character creation. And then when you hit level 4, you can boost those both up by 1 and get an 18 with a +4 modifier and your two most important ability scores. Really good combination. And also with the shield dwarf, you can instead reduce those down to 16 and then allow yourself to have a more well-rounded build, which is important to some people as well. So really good choice for a strength-based barbarian. Now, if you choose a race that gives you a boost to strength but not constitution, these can still be very powerful choices. Those races include the Zariel Tiefling and also the Githyanki. And the Githyanki takes the gold medal here because it gives you a +2 to strength. And like the shield dwarf, this allows you to put your strength at 17 in character creation. And as long as you put another ability score, such as constitution, at 15, when you hit level 4, you can boost both of those by 1 and give yourself that extra boost that most other races wouldn't be able to do. So all in all, if you're going to do a strength-based barbarian, I would say try to get yourself at least a 16 in strength and character creation, a minimum of 14 in constitution, and then I would say a minimum of 12 in dexterity, but some people would say 14, and you know why here shortly when we talk about our armor class number. Now, before we get further into this, we do have to talk about unarmored defense. So right away at level 1 as a barbarian, you get a class feature called Unarmored Defense, which allows your armor class to be 10 plus your constitution modifier plus your dexterity modifier when you're not wearing armor. Now, where it gets a little bit confusing is that for the majority of players, especially strength-based barbarians, you're going to be able to achieve a higher armor class number when you're wearing medium armor. So medium armor can be found very easily in early access, and the best medium armor will be 15 armor class plus your dexterity modifier with a max of up to 2. And that gives you a 17 armor class, which is almost impossible to achieve as a strength-based barbarian because you just don't have enough points to disperse into dexterity to get yourself up to 17. You're more likely going to have a 14 or 15 armor class when not wearing armor. But if you just don't want to wear armor because you're a barbarian and you just don't think it makes sense for RP purposes, that's also completely fine because there's a couple reasons why you might not want to wear armor. First of all, when you wear medium armor, it's going to give you stealth disadvantage. And second of all, barbarians are not really a class that are meant to have an insanely high armor class number. They're a class that's meant to take damage, and several of their features are going to have that incoming damage. And I should also mention that when you're raging as a barbarian, you have to deal damage or take damage before the turn comes back to your turn, and if you don't do that, then your rage is going to end. So let's say you're playing a barbarian and you use your action for something non-attack related, or perhaps you even miss your strike on your enemy. If you don't take damage during that round of combat, you're going to lose your rage, and the higher armor class number that you have, the less likely it is that you're going to take damage. So a lower armor class number can actually be in favor for the barbarian at times because because you want to take damage to keep that rage going if that situation arises. And when you do take damage, it will likely not be that much because you have a lot of constitution, and you also get to have several types of damage types, like I said earlier. So if you don't want to wear armor as a strength-based barbarian, I say just go for it and don't worry about it too much. But if you want to maximize your armor class, then it's probably a little bit more optimal to wear the medium armor. Just don't stress about it. But this is going to bring us into a dexterity build barbarian, which can take much better advantage of unarmored defense. In tabletop D&D, it's very rare that a player will play a dexterity barbarian, and the reason is that so many of the class features for the barbarian require your barbarian to do strength-based attacks or ability checks. And if you don't do a strength-based attack or ability check, then it renders some of those features useless or ineffective. So playing a dexterity barbarian is not really viable in tabletop because you won't be able to take advantage of your rage and getting the damage boost, and also reckless attack, which gives you advantage on your attack roll. In Baldur's Gate 3, however, this is not the case, and I have tested this. At least as of now with patch 7, it's not the case. Perhaps Larian will change this in the future. So why would you want to play a dexterity barbarian? Well, the first advantage, I don't know if I'd call it advantage, but the first benefit of playing a dexterity barbarian is that you now only have 2 primary ability scores, dexterity and constitution. There's actually a subrace of the halfling, a Strongheart halfling, that gives you dex and cons. This is a really good choice if you want to do a dexterity barbarian. But when you only have 2 primary ability scores that you have to focus on, it's much easier to create a well-rounded build because you're not trying to use all of your points for 3 of them. You only really have to focus on 2, and then you can disperse the other ones wherever you would like. Also, dexterity barbarians obviously have high dexterity, which means they're going to place earlier in the order of turns more often than a strength-based barbarian. You're going to be better at dexterity saving throws, and you'll probably be better at other saving throws as well, because as a strength barbarian, you have to disperse your points between 3 primary ability scores. As a dex barbarian, you can kind of dump strength or maybe leave it at 10. Then you have all these leftover points to put into intelligence and wisdom, and you're just overall a little bit tankier because of that. There's also some really cool dexterity builds that you can do, and one of those includes the dual-wielding rapier barbarian, not really the typical barbarian that you think of. And this actually applies to strength barbarians too, because you can dual-wield strength weapons that aren't finesse like the rapiers. And being a dual-wielding barbarian is actually quite powerful. When you use reckless attack in this game, which is a class action that you get at level 2, it gives you advantage on your attacks, and this will apply to your main and your offhand attacks. So when you're dual wielding with other classes, you kind of worry that you might hit one and then miss the other. When you're playing as a barbarian and use reckless attack, you have advantage on both of those attacks. Now, the one thing that's not working with dual wielding right now is when you rage, the damage bonus of +2 is only applied to the main hand weapon, and in D&D it's applied to the main and offhand weapon. I'm not sure if this is intentional from Larian. We'll have to wait and see if they change that in the future. I should also quickly point out that if you do want to dual wield, you're probably going to want to take the dual wielder feat at level 4, so you're not stuck with the light weak weapons, and that means you have to sacrifice your ability score improvement. So if you do dual wield, I would make sure to make your dexterity or your strength on 16 even. Do not leave it on an odd number. And one more thing until we get into the fun stuff like the barbarian features, and thank you guys so much for all of you guys that have been listening for the 7 or 8 minutes that I've just been talking about information. I appreciate you guys sticking around. And that is, are ranged build barbarians viable? And the simple answer is no. It's good to have a ranged weapon on your barbarian. When you can't reach an enemy, you might consider shooting them with a crossbow or a bow, especially if you are a dexterity build barbarian. But you're not going to be able to take advantage or use many of the amazing features that the barbarian gets from their rage and their reckless attack. Many of those features require melee attack rolls to make use of them. So no one's really going to do a full ranged barbarian. It's just not a thing. You're better off going fighter. Now on to the fun stuff, starting off with the classic barbarian feature, Rage, which you get right away at level 1 in character creation. Now you can't activate Rage unless you're already in combat. So you can't rage and then sneak up on an enemy. You have to be in combat like my character is right now. Let me go ahead and activate it. Now there's several different benefits that you'll get while raging in this game. The first one is that when you make a melee attack, you get a +2 to your damage roll. And this only works with your main hand, not your offhand. So if you're dual wielding, it's only going to work on your main hand weapon attack. This could change in the future because, like I said, in D&D it does work on your offhand attack. So let me go ahead and swing at this Intellect Devourer. And then we'll take a look at the combat log. And as you guys can see, down there at the damage roll, it says +2 for character weapon damage boost, which is my Barbarian's Rage. Now, the other benefits of Raging, the first one is that you get advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. And one of the best uses of Rage is to make you one of the ultimate tanks in all of D&D, and that is when you're raging, you will now have resistance to slashing, bludgeoning, and piercing damage. So basically all the physical damage that your character can take, the damage will be halved when you get hit by that. So if somebody swings their sword at you, you only take half damage. If somebody shoots an arrow at you, it's going to be half damage. And this is just such an amazing feature for the Barbarian. Okay, so we just got hit for 3 damage by the claw attack from the Intellect Devour. And as you can see right there, it says damage 6 - 3 because we have resistance to slashing damage. So such an excellent feature. I should also mention that when you rage, it only costs you a bonus action. So you can rage and then attack in the same turn. If you're dual wielding, obviously you can use your bonus action to rage and then you still have your main hand attack. And also when you do rage, it will last up to 10 turns, but you have to deal damage or take damage since your last turn in combat. Otherwise the rage will end. And you only have 2 uses of rage per long rest until it recharges. At level 2, all barbarians will get a feature called Danger Sense, which gives you advantage on dexterity saving throws against traps, spells, and surfaces. So this is not only just adding to your tankiness in combat, but also allowing barbarians to be really good scouts in dungeons, because they can go ahead, and if there's an unexpected trap, they're more likely to reduce or avoid the trap completely than some of the other classes. And then another feature that the barbarian gets is, and this is a feature just as useful as Rage, it's a quintessential barbarian feature, and that is called Reckless Attack. When you use Reckless Attack, it costs your action, but you have advantage on your attack roll at the cost of giving enemies advantage on their attack rolls against you. But since you're a barbarian and you have a lot of HP and you're tanky and a lot of damage that you take is going to be cut in half, this is definitely an advantage and it's worth using. So let me go ahead and use Reckless Attack on this tiefling, and we'll take a look at the combat log. And as you can see, attack roll, I got a 20, wow. So yeah, so we got advantage from Reckless Attack, and it's just really powerful to combine that with Rage, which I don't have Rage active right now because I ran out of Rage charges just for this demonstration. So now we've reached level 3, and as you guys can see, I switched back over to my strength-based Barbarian. And at level 3, we get to choose our subclass for our Barbarian, and the choices are Berserker and Wildheart. The Berserker class is fairly simple. If you want to deal a crap ton of damage, and that's what you love, hands down, the Berserker class will win. If you decide to go down this subclass route, your Rage is going to now turn into Frenzy. And you'll basically get all of the benefits that you got before from Rage, but you're now going to get access to 2 more bonus actions that you didn't have before. So when you go into a Frenzy, you get Frenzied Strike and also Enraged Throw. Frenzy Strike allows you to make a melee attack with your equipped weapon at the cost of a bonus action. So you basically can attack twice in one turn, once with your action and once with your bonus action. And if you use Reckless Attack on your first attack, your Frenzied Strike is also going to have advantage. So insanely powerful, ton of damage for early access. There's no other class that gets to do this until level 5, where martial classes are going to get access to extra attack, but the barbarian's also going to get extra attack. So at level 5, you're going to be able to make 2 attacks with your action, and then also as a bonus action make a Frenzied Strike. Just a ton of damage for a melee class. Now the Enraged Throw allows you to pick up an item or creature, and you can throw it at a target, and the target that you hit will be knocked prone until it is that target's turn in combat. And just like the Frenzied Strike, this only costs you a bonus action, so you can Reckless Attack and then also pick up a goblin and throw it at another creature, knocking that creature prone, and maybe that creature is near someone on your team that is using melee weapons, and they're going to have advantage on their attack. So Berserker is just super powerful. Like I said, for the most part, you're just going to be attacking with Reckless Attack, having advantage on that attack, and then attacking again with your Great Axe using Frenzied Strike or whatever weapon that you're using. Very powerful. and it shows in early access. Now, the Wildheart class allows you to choose between 5 different animals, and depending on which animal you choose, it's going to affect what features you get access to. I have tried out all of these different choices that we have here, and hands down, just like in D&D, choosing the Barbarian, or the Bearheart Barbarian as Larian Studios calls it, is probably one of the most OP things you can do in this game. So if you want insane damage, you're going to go Berserker. If you want to be an absolute beast of a tank, the Bearheart Barbarian is the way to go. And the reason for this is that when you rage as a Bearheart Barbarian, you now have resistance to all damage types except psychic damage. So 95 to 99% of all incoming damage that your Barbarian is taking is going to be cut in half. Unbelievable tank ability here. Really, really good. And on top of that, Larian actually added a heal for your Barbarian to make it even tankier, which is absolutely just insane to think about. So the best tank in the game, hands down, I would say, at least the best tank in early access as of right now. You get the heal and half damage for almost all damage that you're going to take. Now, my personal favorite is the Eagleheart Barbarian, and that is just because of the fun factor. It's a little bit more active, and you can do cooler things than the Bearheart Barbarian. When you're playing a Bearheart Barbarian, you're just taking a lot of damage and healing yourself, which is amazing, but it's not necessarily as fun as having some really cool active skills that some of these other animal choices will give you. So if you're playing as an Eagleheart, when you rage, foes are now going to have disadvantage on their opportunity attacks against your Eagleheart Barbarian. So if you're standing in front of 3 goblins and you want to just simply turn around and go to a different enemy away from those 3 goblins, you can do so without using disengage, because all of those goblins are going to have disadvantage on their opportunity attacks, meaning they're probably going to miss. Now, you can use this selfishly for your character, or you can even consider using it to set off opportunity attacks on purpose to help save other teammates from being hit by opportunity attacks. Really, really good, and it just gives you a ton of maneuverability when you're playing as an Eagleheart Barbarian. Now, the coolest part of this animal choice is the diving strike, and this allows you to leap down onto a foe below you, dealing weapon damage and also knocking them prone, and you also do not take fall damage, so you can be really, really high up and just jump down. It's a really cool animation, as you guys can see in the video footage right now, and you deal that damage, and it also knocks them prone, just making them much more likely to take even more damage throughout that round of combat. I also want to mention that while you're raging as an Eagle Barbarian, dash is now a bonus action, so you can jump off a roof, use diving strike, run away, not worry about opportunity attacks, use dash, and get all the way back onto some high ground to do diving strike again on your next turn. This is a really powerful animal choice in my opinion, and it beats out several of the other ones, considering that you not only get foes get disadvantage on opportunity attacks, but you also get dash and diving strikes. You're getting 3 benefits specifically from the Eagleheart, and most other ones give you 2. The Elk Heart Barbarian makes it so that when you're raging, your movement speed increases by 15 feet, which is pretty significant. So you're getting this passive benefit while raging, where your Barbarian can move further than most others on the battlefield in a single movement. I'm always a big fan of these passive benefits that always basically benefit your character. They're not really as situational. You can always take advantage of increased movement speed, so pretty good choice in that regards. And then the action that you get is called Primal Stampede, which allows you to charge forward and attack all creatures that are in your way, so creatures that are along the line of your actual charge, and it deals damage, bludgeoning damage, and also knocks them prone, just like the Eagleheart dive did. So not horrible, but not really the best in my opinion, because I find it hard to find enemies that actually line up to take advantage of that charge, and because of that, I choose some of the other animals over the elk. As a Tigerheart Barbarian, while you're raging, you're going to get an increase in jump distance by 15 feet. So like the elk was an increase in movement speed, the tiger is an increase in jump speed, so it's kind of like a preference as to what you feel like you would benefit more from. And actually being able to jump a little bit further does help quite a lot. You can jump over surfaces and get to weird areas where enemies might be standing that other characters in your party cannot get to. The action that the Tigerheart gets is called Tiger's Bloodlust, which allows you to lash out and attack up to 3 enemies in front of you, and each of them will take half the damage of your weapon, but they also start bleeding, which means they're going to take damage over time. For 2 turns the bleed will last. So this can actually be pretty powerful, but the problem is, like the Elk Heart Barbarian, I found it very situational. Obviously you have to have multiple enemies in front of you, and I thought it would happen a lot more than what it actually did, so I ended up not making a ton of use out of Tiger's Bloodlust, and because of that, like the elk, I ended up liking the Eagleheart and Bear choice over both of these, but none of these are really bad choices. It's a personal preference. Play what you want to play. And last, but of course not least, is the Wolfheart Barbarian. Oh, I messed it up. And while you're raging as a wolf barbarian, all allies within 7 feet of you will have advantage on their melee attacks. Really, really, really powerful, as long as you have the party comp that can really benefit from this. So if you have a full party of melee users, or I don't know, 2 or 3 melee users that stay close to your barbarian, they're just always going to have advantage on their attack rolls, which is insanely powerful, especially when you're focusing down like a boss or something like that. So super powerful. Keep in mind, if you have a party of barbarians or 2 or 3 barbarians, they already have reckless attacks, so they might not benefit as much from this, but in the right situation, this can be one of the most powerful choices for the Wildheart subclass. You also get an action called Inciting Howl, and if you use it at the cost of your action, of course, your allies will get a boost of 10 feet to their movement speed. So kind of situational, because you're typically not going to want to waste your action on this, but I find myself using it when my party gets caught off guard in a combat situation. I'll pop it in the beginning of combat to help my party get a little bit closer to the enemies. So those of you guys that aren't aware, you can also change your piercings for your appearance. You can change it to anyone you like, regardless of which subclass you choose, and it changes like the nose piercings and a couple other things, the accessories on the face. I'm personally hoping that Larian makes it a little bit more interesting and perhaps gives us some body changes. So if you choose the Bear Heart Barbarian, maybe your character gets a little bit hairier. If you choose the Eagle Heart, maybe you have the option of having eagle eyes. I think something like that would make some of these subclasses that might be a little less powerful more appealing for players. Perhaps they'll consider doing something like that. Now on to level 4. At level 4, if you chose the Wildheart Barbarian, you actually have the ability to change your animal if you didn't like what you experienced at level 3, which is always nice. And then the majority of players are going to increase their strength or dexterity, depending on which type of barbarian you are, up to 18. I think a lot of players will end up doing that. You can't go wrong with that. You always want to get your primary ability score as high as you can. You want to get it to 20 as fast as you can for the most part. But with that said, there's actually a really, really, really powerful feat that you can take. Of course, you're not going to get the ability score improvement if you take the feat, and that is Great Weapon Master. So if you're playing as a strength-based barbarian using a big two-handed weapon, Great Weapon Master is going to give you a +10 to your damage at the cost of a -5 to your attack roll. But if you recall, we have an action called Reckless Attack, which gives us advantage on our attack, which is going to offset that -5. And then if you combine that with like giving your Barbarian Bless from a cleric, this is crazy. This is that you guys see. I'm at a loss for words. It's so crazy how powerful this can actually be. So if you're playing a strength barbarian and you already have at least a 16 in early access for strength, you might want to consider taking Great Weapon Master and dealing out insane damage. You're also going to get the +2 from your rage, so you're getting +12 whenever you land an attack, and you have advantage even though you're getting a -5 with your attack rolls. We also can't forget that if you're playing as a Berserker Barbarian, you have Frenzied Strike, which allows you to attack with a bonus action, and the Great Weapon Master +10 is also going to apply for that. And if you used Reckless Attack as your first attack, you'll also have advantage. Definitely encourage some of you guys to try this out, especially in early access. Make sure you guys have fun. Other than that, that's basically it. You don't get any special features at level 4 for majority of the classes, actually all of the classes. And that'll be it for this Barbarian class guide. If you guys want me to get into some specific guides like a Rapier Barbarian build or a Great Weapon Master two-handed wielding Barbarian, let me know below in the video comments and I will consider doing something like that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know I just kind of loaded a bunch of information with less visuals than I typically show in most videos, but I think I'm a little late with the Barbarian guide on this one. For future patches, I'll try to put out those guides much quicker, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.